Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. On today's video, I'm gonna make some apple pie ribs that are gonna knock your grandma's socks off. Stay tuned. All right, so I've got 2 racks of spare ribs. Now these are full spares, but I am gonna trim them down to a St. Louis cut, so I'm just gonna move one out of the way here. And we're gonna focus on this one. And I'm gonna show you the process of what I do to trim them down to a St. Louis cut, okay? The very first thing that I like to do is flip them upside down, just like this. And we're going to find the largest bone, which is usually the 3rd or 4th. In this rack, because it's got this small bone, it is gonna be this 4th bone right here. And I like to go right above that bone, okay? So I'm gonna trim this up. So where's that 4th bone? 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. And I'm gonna go right here, but I'm gonna draw a line with my knife and come all the way across, keeping an eye on the rest of the rack so that it's nice and square, okay? And that's about as square as I'm gonna get it. So I do have my Dell Strong chef knife. Now this is extremely sharp, so be careful. I am wearing a cut glove on the bottom of my gloves here, okay? And just follow that line. Again, this Dell Strong knife is extremely sharp. If you guys are interested in buying one of these, check the links below and get yourself a discount. So that took that right off, okay? Just gonna move that aside. So now my rack is nice and square. The next thing I like to do is take a look at the ends right here. Okay, like this one right here has a lot of fat and that bone is really small. So again, I'm going to turn it around and try to slice right up against the bone that I'm going to remove, which is this one right here, okay? So right around there, keeping it square, okay? This little bone right here isn't going to hurt anybody's feelings, so I'm just going to toss this in the trash, okay? All right, so my rack is looking really good right here. I do have a little bit of fat on this last one. In fact, I'm gonna take that one off too, okay? But right up against the bone that I'm removing, that way I have a little bit extra meat on the bone next to it. Now this one, well, you know what? Again, this is too much fat on that. I'm just gonna toss that, okay? So there we go. Now you can go ahead and leave those on there if you want to, but for this cook, I like to take them off. Okay, so that's looking really nice. The next thing is to remove the membrane from your rack of ribs. Now I like to use just a regular paper towel and pinch the corner. Now spare ribs like these right here, sometimes the membrane can be tricky to get off, but I have found that using a paper towel works the easiest. Now baby back ribs, those membranes are a lot easier to remove, okay? So see, this membrane usually comes off in a few pieces, and sometimes you do get lucky and the membrane comes off with one swoop, okay? So just grab the rest of it. Oh, this one's gonna fight me all the way through. That's okay. Grab this last piece. There we go, one last piece right here. All right, that looks good right there. Now this butcher right here, there's usually what they call a skirt right here that you have to trim off. Okay, so you just want to trim right up against the bones to remove that. But this butcher did me the favor and also remove the skirt from this rack of ribs. Okay, so this is looking really good. I'm gonna trim this other one up and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I wanted to bring you guys back and show you that this second rack has that skirt that I was talking about earlier. So I'm just gonna take my knife and cut right up against that bone and take this skirt off, okay? Now this has a really thick membrane on it, some silver skin and stuff, that it's not really good to save. I'm also gonna remove this little piece right here, okay? Now you can cook this and maybe give it to your dog and stuff if you wanted to, but you know, there's very little meat in here, but it's got that really thick membrane right there, so I'm just gonna toss this, okay? Now sometimes you will have some heavy fat pockets like on this rack right here. So just simply take that off. Use a little bit more. There we go. So that looks good to me right there. All right, so I've got the ribs trimmed up. Now it's time to season them up. I am gonna be using this PS Seasonings Apple Pie Barbecue Rub. And I gotta tell you, when I open this jar, it smells exactly like apple pie, okay? So I'm gonna apply a light coating of the seasoning to each rack. Just shake it on there, give it a good layer. It smells absolutely delicious. Okay, just like so. Okay, pat that rub in. It smells like a bakery in here. It smells absolutely delicious. Okay, season the back of it. I was thinking about using mustard as a binder like I normally do, but I think that would interfere with the flavor, so I'm just gonna go straight rub. The ribs are nice and moist on the surface, so the rub should stick to it. Okay, pat that down. All right, so what I like to do to get that excess rub on the edges, just pick up your rack, like so, and grab those edges. Okay. So I'm going to be smoking these racks on my Yoder Y640 pellet smoker at 275 degrees. It's already warming up outside. We'll see you guys there. Stay tuned. All right, so I've got my smoker up to 275 degrees. Just going to open up the lid, slide the rack out a little bit. And I got to tell you, this rub from PS Seasonings really melted into the ribs. Look at that. They look like a glazed candy apple with no red tint. Okay. So just gonna place them on the top rack, again 275 degrees. We'll check back in about an hour and a half. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been an hour and a half. Let's take a look at the ribs. Usually at an hour and a half is when I wrap my ribs, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So let me just grab this rack out of my smoker. You guys are gonna be amazed with the color because there is none. Look at that. Looks like that brisket that I did where I only used salt. And again, there was no pepper or anything on this rub right here, so that's why we have that kind of transparent color, if you will. So I'm just gonna wrap them, and these smell delicious, by the way, okay? I was gonna add some more rub, but I added enough rub when I seasoned them earlier. So I'm just gonna wrap it in foil nice and tight. Okay, and place it back on my smoker. Now these are gonna sit in my smoker wrapped for 1 hour. At that point, I'll bring you guys back and we'll unwrap them. Stay tuned. All right, so we are at the hour mark, total of 2.5 hours. And I'm gonna take the ribs out of the foil, but I do wanna slide the rack out so you guys can see these. See, we have some color on these finally. Oh yeah, really nice pullback. Let me turn this around so you guys can see that. Now I didn't add anything to the wrap. Got some really nice pullback. There's not really any bark to this, but that's the nature of that rub. Okay, there's no black pepper or anything that we're used to seeing on ribs. These are just going to be really flavorful. Okay, so got some fat that came off of the rack. All right, so I've got both racks out of the foil. Now I'm going to be saucing one of these racks with an apple habanero barbecue sauce from Head Country that my buddy James from Aim 'em and Claim 'em sent me. Now that sauce, I cannot find it here in El Paso, and James found it somewhere where he lives in Austin. I guess they carry it at the supermarkets up there, and he was nice enough to send me a couple of bottles. So I'm gonna be saucing one of these. But first I wanna let that surface of these ribs dry up a little bit for probably 20 minutes, okay? So I'm just gonna put them back in there. We'll come back in 20 minutes and sauce one of the ribs. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been another 30 minutes. Total cook time is at 3 hours. Oh yes, these ribs have a beautiful color. So I'm just gonna slide the rack out so you guys can see a little bit better right there. And these look really nice. Again, not a whole lot of bark, but these are really nice looking ribs right here. I'm gonna get an internal temperature, so I'm sure some of you guys will ask. Now you wanna take them over 200 degrees, okay? So these are 203 degrees, and they're probing really nice and tender. And the reason you wanna take them over 200 is that's when that fat really starts to melt, okay, from the ribs. So I'm gonna be saucing this rack right here, and I am using this Head Country Apple Habanero barbecue sauce. And again, Brother James, thank you for sending me this. Check out his channel if for some reason you're not subscribed to James at Aim 'em and Claim 'em Smokers. Actually, I'm gonna flip that rack around first and grab the back side of this first. Okay. So I got my barbecue brush here from Dale Strong. Just gonna brush it on. Again, if you guys are interested in buying these Dale Strong knives or some of these barbecue tools that I'm using on this video, check out the links below. All right, so this is the first time that I'm ever gonna taste this barbecue sauce. And I can tell you, I already like it because it's not a heavy barbecue sauce like you see that's out there on the market today. It's kind of got a glaze kind of look to it. Let me flip it over. Get some really nice pullback from these ribs. As I mentioned earlier, I think that apple habanero with the apple pie rub is just gonna be amazing on these ribs, okay? So I'm gonna leave one without sauce because I wanna taste that rub by itself to see what those ribs taste like. Look at that. It looks like a competition rib. That look, anyway. Except for the pepper. Man, this looks really good. Grab them bones too. Whoo, yeah. A little bit more sauce. I'm gonna give these ribs probably 10 minutes just to let that sauce get nice and tacky. We'll see you guys inside. Stay tuned. All right, so the ribs are ready and the total cook time was 3 hours and 30 minutes, okay? So I'm gonna slice this one with no sauce first, and these are still pretty warm. Just like this. Now what I like to do is turn them around. You can see the bones right through the meat a little bit better, okay? And we're just gonna slice right in between that meat. Man, these are super tender. You know, I just realized that it's been months since I smoked some ribs, okay? So this is gonna be a treat for me. It smells like a barbecued apple pie rib, okay? Take a look at this one right here. Look at that. Look at that smoke ring. Still really nice and juicy as well. Nice and tender. So I'm just gonna move these aside. All right, here's my apple pie rib right here with the apple habanero from Head Country. Same thing, just gonna turn them upside down. And that sauce smells really good. Take a look at this one. Look at that. Ooh, man, these smell delicious. So I'm gonna finish cutting these up. We'll come back and give them a taste. All right, let's give these apple pie ribs a try. I'm gonna try the ones with no sauce first. And man, the smoke ring is good. They smell absolutely delicious. Here we go. All right, so that rib with no sauce has a really good apple pie flavor to it, but what I should have done when I wrapped it in foil is add a little bit more rub just to give it a little bit more flavor, but that's delicious. Now let's try the apple pie ribs with the apple habanero barbecue sauce from Head Country. Look at that good looking rib. Okay, here we go. Man, I just took another bite off of that rib and it's absolutely delicious. You guys have got to try that apple pie rub from PS Seasonings and that Head Country apple habanero together. They pair extremely well. I highly recommend that you guys give this a shot. Don't forget to check out all the links below. There it's gonna have some of the items that I use in this video, including the Head Country barbecue sauce and the apple pie rub from PS Seasoning. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If this is your first time here, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And as always, if you have any questions, ask them down below. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe Spit Barbecue. See ya.